Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We're moving now into our first segment for the morning, and this one is all about the significance of independence, and we're getting that from 3 generations. Now, in with us to talk about it is Giovanna Pinelo. She's a student. She's the young one. Good morning, Gio. We also have with us the co-director of Heritage Education Network Belize, that's Sylvia Batty. Good morning as well to you. And historian Fernando Cruz. Good morning, guys. Good morning to everybody.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Now, very important, the significance of independence, and I want to hear exactly how everybody feels. But primarily, I'll jump to Fernando Cruz, who was a historian. Fernando, things then and things now. What are your thoughts?
Good morning, Belize. John Merlini, I think 40 years, looking back at that, 40 years of Belize's independence is quite an interesting feat, in the sense that I think we've come that far, but I think for what George Price was fighting for, or what his idea about independence, I think to me it is not reflective upon how united we have become within this country for our progress within the last 40 years. I think we seem, I mean, there was maybe a rift maybe upon getting towards independence, but I think that when we look at where we are today, I would have expected we would have been more united. We would have grown a lot more. And especially with the point that we're facing, the whole Belize Guatemala issue.
Yeah.
I would have thought that maybe we would have come stronger as a united front to be able to say, look, you know what, this is ours. We're independent, and we've seen 40 years, and we want to plan for a better 40 years.
Yeah. So that's I want to hear a bit more about what it was like to experience the first Independence Day itself, because I think when we watch that video, we play it back every year because it's such a monumental moment when that Union Jack comes down and the Belize flag is hoisted for the very first time. I've spoken with people, and they speak about the great pride and emotion they had at that moment. And of course, that depends on what they believed at that time, because many people forget that it was a contentious decision to become an independent country.
I agree with you, and I think when you mentioned about what it was like, it's a funny thing, because when you said that with the flag coming down, I could feel my arms, my back getting goosebumps right now, because it was a big decision for our country. I think there was a rift, because I guess some people believe it's like leaving your home.
Yeah, they're scared.
And you're scared, and then I guess maybe you do not know where you're venturing into. But I think Mr. Price and the others around him had put in enough focus upon where they wanted to go. But at the same time, looking at the ceremonies, after in hindsight, because for a fact, I mean, TV was not something accessible to all of us at that time.
Yeah.
So on our own home turf here in San Ignacio, it was a very emotional thing, because even at that time, the political rift between two parties was a big thing. One wanting independence, one not wanting independence. So as a young individual at the time, coming from an angle of near enough opposition to the whole thing, there was a daunting prospect. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, in the back of my head, it's like, what, this is something new, this is something fresh. Let's see where it's going to take us. All we can do is actually work together and try and build this nation as one people.
Yeah.
So this is the first Independent Eve that we're seeing there on screen.
Yeah.
Sylvia, let's get you to weigh in. Of course, your perspective is is different because you have done so much research that I'm sure the history feels real. But but tell us a bit about what it means for you.
I guess for me, when I grew up and sort of experienced a lot of my earliest memories when it comes to independence was through the school system. So, like John mentioned, and you, Marlene, uniform parades, that made up a very, very big memory or part of my memory of Independence Day. September celebrations and sort of the pride around celebrating your country, but together as a community. So Independence Day isn't something that we spent at home. It was something that you spent, as part of your class, as part of your school, as part of your wider community. It's unfortunate that back in my days, cell phones were not, that easily accessible. So cell phones came around when I was in high school. So there aren't very many pictures of me as a little kid in my uniform with my flags and all of that stuff. Ready for uniform parade. But that sort of takes up a large portion of my memory when it comes to Independence Day. But I will say when I entered the workforce and started to do research on Independence Day, and I really saw a big disconnect in terms of what the young students that I was trying to, the learners that I was trying to have discussions with about Independence Day, how they viewed things. And so, we'd have a lecture, and then you'd hear, Miss, but I gone home and my mommy said this or my daddy said that. And then I had major issues trying to bridge that gap or bridge that connect. And then I finally took the chance to go to my mommy and said, why are these things occurring? And my mom said, you know what, Sylvia, Independence Day didn't exist for their parents. I grew up singing God Save the Queen, and I sat there and I realized that within 10 or 15 years, we had gone from God Save the Queen and have everything in our school system be very British oriented to being Belize, to being Belizean, to having that national pride. And that was a very, very, very quick shift in my opinion. And an entire generation grew up knowing little to nothing about what it meant to be a British colony. There were a lot of American influences that I saw occurred very, very, very quickly after independence. But also just nation building and really the shaping of what it meant to be Belize and Belizean. That's what my generation experienced. And I realized the generations after me probably had a very different experience of it. But when speaking to our parents, we have to make that bridge and that gap and that connection that they never gone to school and had social studies that talked about Belize.
Right.
They didn't go to school and have that information about Belize. We were one part of a British Empire, and everybody sang God Save the Queen, and that was my grandparents as well. So sitting in the middle of all of that, seeing the generations after and the generations before me it's moving, but it puts things into perspective, and I feel like the trial run of what it meant to be Belizean and that national identity is what I lived. And those things continue to change. They're being contested today. Our perceptions of it are shifting. We're moving toward inclusivity. So I feel lucky. I feel privileged to live that.
And I definitely would like to get to Giovanna, but I could so much feel exactly where Sylvia is coming from, simply because I'm a part of that generation. my days of uniform parade all the way back in the early 80s was, it sticks with me. It's what I carry around. But let's get to Giovanna. Giovanna, what is your thoughts about this entire thing? What does independence mean to you, and how do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, the fellow correction there. I am a student, but I'm also a teacher, a tour guide, an artist. But like Sylvia was saying, there's like a gap because like the older generations, they lived during the British Empire, during colonialism. So when I think of independence, I can't separate it from that colonial history. Growing up, I think I myself took it for granted until like you reached a level where you start consciously thinking about independence, and you start questioning what we're really celebrating. As a student of history, like I said, I can't separate it from the colonial legacy. And you question, like, where are we going? At 40 years, what do we have to show for how independent we really are as a country? Right?
I'd want to tap a bit more into your experience, Giovanna, just to understand, because it's being a student, a history student now, you're able to kind of put into perspective what you learned in your school system or what you learned through your engagements with the community around this time, and where the foundation of what Independence Day means for us, you're able to grasp that in your history lessons. So talk about how you compare those.
Okay, so I think I got, excuse me, sorry.
Yeah.
Comparing
What you learned in school.
what I learned in school and what I realized from observing and actually participating in September celebrations is that through the school system is where we build our civic pride, the foundation for our civic pride, no? But it's not until you get out there and you're actually sharing with fellow classmates, with fellow community members, and when you actually like ask other people what they think about independence, no?
Mm-hmm.
I've done research and oral history from my community, and I noticed that a lot of the older people, the elderly people in my community, what they remember most is the 10th day of September, that celebration in particular.
Yeah. Now, this is fascinating. Now, come back to Sylvia for a moment and talk. Sylvia, you were saying kind of a similar thing, which is when you consider what you learned and you consider what people after your generation are learning, there's a difference and quite frankly, maybe a disconnect. How do you put that into perspective for viewers?
Yes, thank you for that. No, it's fine. So I believe that what we see in the way I learned history was a very large emphasis on national pride and nationalism and creating that national narrative of this is who we are as Belizeans, and even the concept of creating that singular Belizean identity that should be representative of the multitude of diverse cultural groups that make up Belize. So that is the history that I learned, that I was exposed to. That's the history that about 30% of our population learned when you look at how many people are in my age bracket population-wise. So a good chunk of the young professionals in Belize learned that civic pride. And that is very, very different from what I would say my mom learned in the educational system. And you all are right in this conversation, especially how Giovanna mentioned that in the school system is where we learn that civic pride.
Yeah.
But I will say also what we're seeing with a lot of the things that are occurring right now, I'll speak to two educators who received awards for these efforts after this segment. We're seeing that we are exploring what it means to be a Belizean outside of that context that was created by colonialism, or that context that was created by nationalism, which was really centered around needing to build our
Yeah.
nation and our national identity. And I understand why we needed to build our national identity, because colonialism was a real was a really is a period of time that incorporated a lot of division in between our cultural groups, in between ourselves as Belizeans. And post-colonialism, what we wanted to do was to have unity in what it meant to be Belizeans. And in the 60s, 70s, and even in the 80s, as we lived that post-colonialism period, we created that. And now we are seeing more and more where it is being contested. And that's okay. Culture shifts, culture is dynamic. Our interpretations and understandings of it is allowed to be dynamic. We are allowed to negotiate things on the news, on social media, through art. We are allowed to really step back and say, okay, separating all of these things that occurred during colonialism, what does it mean to be a Belizean? What things were included in our history? What things were not included? How can we create redress
Yeah. Yeah.
now that we are here as young professionals? And it's the young professionals that are leading this charge, if you'll notice.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something, in our history books, this will be the period of time where the Independence Day celebration cannot be discussed without colonialism, without talking about decolonization, without talking about redress for what has occurred during colonization. This is a monumental time that we are living, and this is where we carve out new narratives and new directions for Belize. And it's a privilege to live it, to experience it, to contribute to it. And yes, we are living in a time of dynamic change, energetic change that is led by those young professionals who grew up in that system and who are saying, you know what, this does not accurately represent who I am as a person, and I'm excited to lead a new charge, to have something that is more representative of Belize, of our indigenous roots, of our people, of our diversity, and to create unity out of that.
I want to circle back to that question. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a bit of time for you all to think it through, just in terms of what you consider to be the Belizean identity. But what you're saying, Sylvia, I think is so interesting. I remember hearing, and I wish I could be able to properly attribute it, someone referencing what we experience as a colonization hangover. In other words, there are remnants left over, feelings still left over, that perhaps we're not able to recognize some of the implicit bias that exists. But let me bring it back to Fernando for a moment, because what I very often recognize is that when different generations discuss independence, there can be a disconnect. In other words, if you have experienced the transition of Belize becoming an independent country, or at least be close enough to it, your perspective is vastly different from someone who's in their 20s at the moment. Fernando, do you have that experience?
Certainly, I would have to agree with you there. I think, but I think also it's because probably what maybe I guess maybe the way how we were governed, the rules of you know the way how we did stuff. I think under a British colonial system before independence, things were so structured, and I think what you find that after independence, that did happen or did continue happening, but you find that Belize seemed to spiral out of control after 1984, after the first change of government in this country. Things just seem to spiral out of control, and I don't know whether it's the idea that, oh, we're independent, we can do what we want now, we don't have to account to nobody, that we seem to have lost control of the reason why we wanted an independent country. I think also, I think maybe the discipline, the way, you know, the way the community was together. I understand that the whole cultural probably maybe division between that, maybe what was being done by the colonials, but the but I think when what I would see at that time, we would be more a more tight knit community. We were together. We were celebrating together. We were looking out for each other. I think Belize within the last 40 years, we have become very sort of personal. We become it's about me.
Yeah.
It's not about the community no more. And I think we need to get back to that. We need to start looking out for our brothers, for our sisters. We cannot continue with the way we are right now, because I think I don't think then we're emulating the vision that Judge Price wanted for this country. You know, I think what he represented, you know, and what was celebrated yesterday, and then all the videos from around the country, you're looking at people with the cleanup campaign, people helping each other here and there.
Yeah.
Why should it happen? Why should it happen all on a day like yesterday? It should be happening 24/7 across the year.
Yeah.
But I think I think our I guess for the people who are not there for that change, they have probably more, they maybe see independent as more or the Independence Day as more as a celebration or an excuse to actually party. But I think we have to put back more the nationalistic point into it,
Yeah.
upon how we feel about this country and where we want to take it.
Fernando,
I understand you meant. Go ahead, John.
Sure. You touch a very important point as to the divide or the change back in the year 1984. I'd really like to hear more about that, but I know, you know, with time. But at the same time, I also want for you as a historian to, is there any part of history or bit of history that you think that we should continue to take on with us as we continue to grow as a country? Or what piece are we missing? Piece of Belize's history that we should move on with wherever, however we go?
Well, John, I think when we look at the month of we look at the month of September as a month of celebration.
It's a festive month,
and yeah, it's a festive month. But also I think, you know, like what Giovanna mentioned, when you talk to the elderly people, they are more tied on to the 10th of September. And I think, you know, because that was the first thing that was celebrated, that's what was sort of imprinted into their head. But at the same time, I understand, you know, there are different factions trying to shift the idea of you know, about the value of the 10th, of whether it existed or not. But the point about it, that whether there was a grand battle or not, if it was not for the reason of the 10th of September, we would have no September 21st. So I think we need to think and hold on to our identity. We need to educate our people within the schools. You know, if people do not know what is their history, the full basis on it, and you know, and you have other historians like Giovanna's father, Giovanni Pinelo, Dr. Carl. These guys have done the research concerning the 10th of September. This information needs to hit the country. It needs to be put out there, so then it gives us a credible foundation for where we built onto our independence. And then, you know, as a unified people, we have come 40 years. You know, the last few years we have been a bit shaky now, but we need to then try and take the next 40 years as a unified people and build this country together.
Well, you know, Fernando, you went there, so I'll just keep on going. And let me get you or Sylvia or either one of you to chime into this. Because what do you think the impact is of how we see what is essentially a politicizing of our national days? And we have seen over the years where whether it's the 10th or 21st, one is downplayed or the other one is upplayed.
Yeah.
What do you think that does for us as a nation that is still in formation of our identity?
Go ahead, Sylvia.
If you don't mind, I'll go very quickly, and maybe Carla will have something to contribute. I will say that it creates division, and I will say that there are a lot of there are two narratives out there. There's either or, and there's not a lot of research on both of them. out there. There are a couple readers, there are a couple books, there are personal opinions by professionals in the field, but there needs to be more. There needs to be more that is accessible to Belizeans. There needs to be more that is written in a language that is easily accessible to all Belizeans. And we need to provide, as historians and as heritage managers, we need to provide that information, that tool, so that people can use that to make informed decisions. An opinion is an opinion, but what we need is, I want the translations of those archival documents. I want the translation of the Mexican archival document, publicly accessible and in a language that people can understand. I want a holistic view. What all occurred the year before Butler St. George's Key, the year of preparations, the Falls Bank 14, the previous raids. I want to know when it was celebrated, why we began celebrating. I want to know how that factored into not celebrating Emancipation Day. A holistic view so that there is less division. Because like Fernando mentioned, we are divided as a country and as communities, and that's not the way it used to be for us. People don't know their neighbors now. People don't speak to their neighbors. How many of you can go to your neighbor and say, can I have a cup of sugar? Or can you please look after my kids? Or pick in my clothes for me? No. And a lot of these divisions are along these political lines. And what we should be is united as a people, not divided by politics, because then that's just another form of division. Like that we are experiencing, and that is not the direction that I want to see for my country.
What about
Carla? Sorry?
I wanted to ask Giovanna to chime in there and tell me what it's like for you.
Okay, so as a student of history, again, you do have to consider the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Okay.
Right? But also, we can't stay stuck in the past either. Right? We do need to take the information that we do have, that we do gather, and hopefully this information is made public and we have more access to it. But we have to carry on, because knowing your history is a basis for that identity, that Belizean identity, yes. But let's go back to the 21st now, because we did obtain independence on the 21st of September in 1981. So how do we move forward now?
Yeah.
I would have to say that I was glad to have been around when the days when you would have a morning parade with one party, the afternoon with another party.
Wow.
Yeah.
I saw that. It used to annoy me, because like why are we divided as a people? But it was quite interesting to see that after the 1981 and then the first change of government in 1984, one party the UDP then automatically welcomed the 21st of September. They seem to then push the 10th to the side. And and to me, when I look at today, that it either needs to be a day of humanity, or a day of something that the 10th of September we can't thinking about a parade probably anymore. But together as a people, both political parties need to drop their guard, and they need to relax and actually come together as one people on the 21st of September. Come together and we celebrate together, and we start thinking about building this country together. We cannot keep on being, we are divided probably on an election day, but after an election day is finished, we need to start working together as a people to build this country for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that question now, as to how you, on a personal level, define what the Belizean identity is.
Are you talking to me?
Anyone, whoever wants to chime in first.
You're on there, Fernando.
Okay, I am the Belizean identity. I see us as one people. I do not see myself as as the mestizo. I do not see myself as a Creole, as a Garifuna, as a Maya, as a Mennonite, as a Chinese or Indian. I see myself as one individual made up of all this.
Yeah.
And I think if we can actually look at if you can look at yourself within the mirror and you see yourself as that one Belizean, then you forget about the idea of the Garifuna, the Maya, and whatever other cultures we have. That does not mean that you forget actually who you are.
Yeah.
But I think if we will move together as a people, it can't be about me the mestizo or me the Creole or me the Garifuna or me the Maya. It needs to be about we the Belizean individuals that want to move on for a betterment of this country. And if we cannot do that, we will continue having the rifts that we're having right now. And I think I do not want to see my son grow up within this environment right now. I think we need a more passive environment. We need a more progressive environment. But we have to look at it as the community is you and you are the community.
Yeah.
And that way I think that we will move forward as a people.
Yeah.
But do you think there's a possibility of getting back to that with all the other influences that we've got now? Being able to see what a first world country or how they're living their life, Fernando?
John, I think it is possible, but you know what? We're people do not want, most of the times people are scared of leading. That's the reason why they actually find leaders. So I think it's possible if our leaders get their act together, if the arrogance and if all the other ills that we have had for the past say 40 years, all the ills that have affected this country, and we start looking upon the country as one thing that we want to grow, we want to nurse, and that includes the environment, the people. I think we can do that, but our leaders need to be more truthful. They need to be more heartfelt about the community and about the people that they represent. And unless we get to that, it's going to be a while. But John, I believe in the country. I believe in our people, and I think it's possible.
Cool.
Yeah. So let's go back to the Belizean identity question. Let's hear from you, Giovanna.
Well, the Belizean identity, again, a mix of so many different cultures, and in the context of our historical background, right? It might feel elusive at times, but again, like if we can take off from that point that Mr. Fernando was saying, where you know your roots, but you also have a bigger, wider vision of a united Belize, Belizeans united. I think that's where we need to go, and we need to promote the arts and critical thinking in our education system in order to continue that nation building, the nation building.
And Sylvia?
All right. Well, I will answer in what I feel are a couple truths for me personally, and maybe other Belizeans can identify with it. One, we are multicultural. Two, we are multi-ethnic, whether that means that you as a person have many different cultural backgrounds, or whether that means that we as a Belize, as a country, have many different cultural groups and backgrounds. But multicultural, multi-ethnic, we talk Creole, Super G, that is general.
Good one.
Rice and beans is the national dish, but orange rock tacos is only great in Orange Rock, and it is a very close second. We're proud of our flag, no matter where we go. We take our flag, we're proud of our flag. We might not always agree with what's on the flag, but you meet a Belizean not in Belize, they will have their flag with them.
That's right.
That's right.
And I think those truths and the others really show that as much diversity, as much differences as there are in Belize, we have a couple commonalities. We have a couple of areas that all of we will agree on.
Yeah.
And that to me is rooted in history, and it gives me the hope for a united Belize in the future. It's just up to us to do the work. It's just up to us to inspire people to do the work. And we're here. We're doing that. We're working on that. These discussions are contributing to that.
Yeah, yeah. It's so great to hear different perspectives.
Yep.
And it's important that we recognize that my reality and my understanding of Independence Day and what it means to be Belizean in this country is not the same throughout. It changes based on where I live. It changes based on what information I've been exposed to, and it changes based on how old I am as well. So as we wrap this up, one of the things I wanted to make note of is the 40th anniversary of our independence is going to be commemorated tomorrow. We are young, no matter how you spin it, no matter if you're 20 and you think 40 old, we are a young nation. Let's talk just from a personal perspective. What do you want to see in the future for Belize? And I want to start with you, Fernando.
Marlene, I think we need to look at our young population. We need to look at the creativity they have.
Yeah.
There's if you look at the last couple days, you look at all these beautiful murals that have come up across the country.
Yeah.
Like what Giovanna said, I think we need to put effort more into the arts. We can't, all of us can't be a doctor, a electrician or whatever, but there's people have their own. We need to find that thing that makes that person spark, the thing that brings that person creative juices out. We need to encourage that. I think our young brothers and sisters across the country who have issues, with the issues we're facing, we need to work with them.
Yeah.
We need to feel that we want to grow with them. We want them to grow with us. We want them to be in inclusive. I want to see a Belize where there's not a separation upon people that can get the opportunities and the others that can't. I think we should all be able to get the opportunities. We should all be able to benefit. We should all be able to have the opportunity to a better education. We should all have the opportunity to getting a good health care. I think that's the reason why I want us to start looking out for each other. I don't want us to keep on fighting. I think it's like our politicians need to set. They need to be the ones to set the example. They need to have a better behavior when they're meeting within the House of Parliament, because it then reflects upon the environment that they're coming out of, and if that's the way we're being led, how do you expect our people to act any different? But I see Belize as a shining beacon. I see Belize as a country that people will within the next 40 years, people will recognize that it is such a small country, but the population, the young population, the educated few, or even the uneducated would have put in their time, their work to carve the history of this country for a betterment. I want a betterment for our people. I want a betterment for everybody, that even for the people who actually visit the country. I want them to feel that when you come here, you actually come to the real jewel, and that is what I want for Belize within the future.
All right. Giovanna?
Is she there, Giovanna?
Hi,
All right,
I don't
let's go
believe-
to Sylvia then.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sylvia?
Yes. Hi. What do I want for the future of Belize? I will say, I would, as a young professional, I am hoping for the days when we can be more united as a people. I will say that there are, in my opinion, a couple avenues or approaches that we can take or incorporate to get there. I want to see a Belize where we understand the diversity of our history. Belize has over 3,000 years of history of different peoples, different cultures. I want to see that information accessible for all Belizeans, whether it's by a cartoon or a song, or more visits to archaeological sites, more visits to historic sites. Let us really understand our history and how our deeply rooted history has created the Belize that we are experiencing today, and how it is the foundation for the Belize of tomorrow. I want to see greater emphasis on the environment, environmental conservation. Belize needs to recycle. Belizeans need to have a mindset where they recycle. Belizeans need to go back to how our grandparents lived and say, you know what? Things were organic, they were eco-friendly. All these buzzwords that exist today, that is how our grandparents and even some of our parents used to live.
Yeah.
Growing up, we always would hear, I would always hear, Belize is Mother Nature's best kept secret.
Yep.
And that was a tourism line, but I believed that as a little kid. And every time you go through the phone book or all the magazines and they have then the pictures of Belize and the rainforest, that is what my Belize used to be like.
Yeah.
And at the rate that some things are going and developing, we're not going to be Mother Nature's best kept secret much longer. And it is in us to change that. I want to see a Belize where there's opportunity for young professionals. There are a lot of people out there who feel perhaps that the business economy, that educational opportunities, that entrepreneurship opportunities are not as accessible for Belizeans as they should be. There are small businesses that would go so far with a grant of $1,000 or a low interest loan of $1,000 or the support of the Belizean people just by buying their products or sharing that information out there. And if we want those young professionals to remain in Belize, we've got to see that change where we support each other and where these areas are accessible to Belizeans. We don't want the brain drain to continue because it has been going on, but we want to build Belize as Belizeans for Belizeans.
Wow.
I would also say that we want civil services. We want our government services to be effective and efficient. Everybody knows that if you go to the registry, if you want to register your child or get your passport out, how difficult it is. Everybody knows the long lines at Lands Department for basic services. These things should not be a joke on Belize Buy and Sell, where people openly admit to it and openly will say, this is how you get around the system.
Yeah.
No, we are young professionals. We see that. We don't agree with that. It is not a joke to us. It is the source of frustration, and it is the source of or a view of the structural challenges that are in our Belizean society. And it is the things that make us think, do I want to live here or do I want to live in a more quotes unquote developed country? And some of those challenges is what holds us back, is holding us back. And like what Giovanna said, it makes me think of what we have accomplished in 40 years. And I will say we have accomplished a lot, but I want to see more. Like Fernando said, like Giovanna said, I want to see arts. I want to see music. I want to see concerts. I want to see spoken word poetry. I want to see more culinary experiences for Belizeans by Belizeans.
Yeah.
I want us to see all of those truths that speak to who we are as Belizeans. I want to see that. And not only in September 21st, but all year round. With that being said, I plan to probably eat rice and beans tomorrow and parading at my house. I have my flag up. I have my September celebration team nails. I will listen to some type of brought down music and not only the general.
And march
tomorrow.
with your flag.
March with my flags. And celebrate the 21st of September tomorrow, because that's how far we have gotten.
Yeah.
And because I am excited to see the next 10 years, the next 20 years. I don't know if I reach the next 40 years, but to see where we are going with our future in Belize.
All right. Well,
Wow.
thank you to all of you for joining us this morning for this conversation, putting into perspective just how different generations, different personalities view and commemorate our 40th Independence Day. With that, though, we're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to two of the recipients of the COVID-19 Heroes Award. So please stay tuned.